Welcome to Daily Steps from One Extraordinary Marriage, where we outline simple steps that you can take to have the ultimate marriage adventure. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. In today's show, we answer the question, how can we do a sex challenge if our levels of desire are so different?
We understand differences in desire, right? That is something we actually live and have lived in our marriage. And, for many couples, one spouse is the quote, high desire, and the other is by default, the lower desire spouse. And, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you could be either one of those. And I do want to, at the very onset of the show, I do want to dispel the myth that men are always the high desire spouse. That's not always the case. So if you're in a marriage, ladies, where you're the high desire spouse, we hear you, we know you exist. And, there's this perception that the sex challenge only benefits and is only for the high desire spouse, right? That they're going to be the only ones that are going to get something out of it. It's all about them. And often it's even the high desire spouse that is like, I think we should do this.
Yeah.
Right. And the low desire spouse is like,
something else.
One more thing I have to do. And just so you all know, full disclosure, Elisa is the low desire spouse.
That would be the one who was just talking.
That's me. Yeah. I am the low desire spouse. And, it was really interesting because the very first time that we ever did a sex challenge, it was Tony's idea. So for those of you that are married to a high desire spouse, or if you are the high desire spouse, don't be surprised. Like, we've lived this. But what happened was when we made the decision to do this, it really created a shift in how I, as the low desire spouse, could come on board with Tony. The sex challenge actually provides a structure. For a lot of low desire spouses, kind of like, okay, well, when are we going to have sex? And, are you initiating? What does that look like? Where if you're doing a 7 days of sex challenge, it's pretty obvious. I think we're going to have sex for the next 7 days.
I don't think it's an I think, it's we are.
We are. I know, right? So there's that understanding of what the structure looks like. There's also an understanding of what the expectations are, right? So whether you're high desire or low desire, all of a sudden we're all like playing on the same field. And it actually starts to provide these opportunities to get to know your spouse better. Right? For those of you that are low desire and you're like, I don't know if I can do this, you may actually find, like I did, that being in a sex challenge where we're just focusing on this one thing for, 7 days, you actually start to learn things about yourself. Like, you may find that, having sex more frequently actually increases your desire. It does for me. Like, when we, whether it's illness or whatever, and we've got a stretch where, we're not doing the intimacy lifestyle, we're not keeping up with having sex regularly, my desire will wane. We start having sex more frequently, it's like sex begets sex. Yeah. Which is not a bad thing.
I think the mindset begins to change, right? I think there's this time where you start to realize on both sides what's important and how you enjoy this time together. And so you actually get to understand that in a time frame where those expectations are clear and there is structure around it, so you're able to fully enjoy it. Now, don't get so structured out that you have no ability to have some spontaneity, because that's not what we're saying to do here. We're saying have that structure so the 7 days and the expectations are clear about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had the revelation listening to you talk, and we're talking about these differences in desires, that often the one that would say that they're low desire sexually is actually high desire emotionally. And so what happens during a sex challenge, and we've seen this happen with so many couples in the one family.
And I know where you're going with us as well.
Is that when you start thinking that it's going to be about the high desire spouse getting all the sex that they want, what happens for so many couples is you start to see that the emotional connection and the emotional needs and that emotional love tank, or whatever you want to call it, actually starts to get filled, because it's not just about the sex. It's about learning to love and learning to be connected to one another. So if you're the low desire sexually but high desire emotionally, I would actually challenge you to say yes to the challenge, to see what the two of you can create as a couple when you really look at this from a holistic approach, that it's not just sex, but we're going to actually go after our marriage and be all in on every different level.
For more information on this topic, check out the fully revised and updated second edition of the 7 Days of Sex Challenge at 7daysofsex.com.